This audition was, I would say, the most unusual for me. I had been having false labor. I was 9 months pregnant, and I'd been having false labor for 3 weeks.
So I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and when I got out of bed, now this sounds really corny, I said, "Greg, this is your date with destiny."
And I phoned up and I said, could I come in on the Thursday? I know my audition isn't till the Saturday, but that's my due date.
But you never know in this business whether people like you or not. The business is 99% rejection.
There are so many variables in why you get a job or you don't. You know, you might be too tall or too blonde or too young or too old or have too high a voice, or you may look like someone that the director hated, and he may not want to cast you for that reason.
I met Hal Prince, and he said, when is your baby due? He couldn't believe it. You know, of course, I'm as tall as I am round.
Hal Prince had us stop, and he turned to one side, looked at the people that were with him, then he turned at the other side, looked at the people, and then he said, "Boys, come down off the stage."
I had sung for Hal Prince a year ago in the spring for the part of Raoul, and he told me I was too old.
Then he did something which is unprecedented. He offered us the roles right there.
Actually, I'd been having contractions as I was waiting to go in to sing and to do the scene. I was having contractions.
And at that moment, I knew that, wow, they do like me.
And I get a call on the phone, and it's the casting people saying, we would like you to play the part of Christine.
And suddenly, a year later, after having been told that I was too old and not right for the role, suddenly I was perfect.
And I said, I'm sorry to have to cut this short, but I think I'm in true labor and I have to go to the hospital.
My agent asked the casting people about what, made me perfect. Suddenly, a year later, the response was, that's show business.
Hello. Everyone in the theater lives for the excitement of the first night, when we get to perform our show for a real audience. And when you come to see The Phantom of the Opera, we would like you to have the greatest experience you've ever had, something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. The theater has that power to affect people. And when I say theater, I'm not just referring to the actors on stage. Many, many people have given their all to create the show you'll be seeing this afternoon. And just how an amazing piece of theater like Phantom gets made is a wonderful story. There are some enormous talents behind this show. Most likely you've heard of Andrew Lloyd Webber, the composer of Cats and Evita, whose original idea it was to make a musical of The Phantom of the Opera. Hal Prince is probably the most celebrated director on the contemporary Broadway stage. And then there's Maria Bjornson, who first envisioned the fantastic sets and costumes for Phantom. But over 700 other people have contributed their talents and their skills. In the next few minutes, I will introduce you to some of them. Each one is just as important to the creation of the theatrical experience as is the actor. Oh, by the way, my name is Colin Wilkinson, and while you're watching this video, I will be here in this dressing room putting on my makeup and costume, because this afternoon you'll see me in my role as the Phantom of the Opera. When an actor comes to a new musical production, first he'll read the score, and together with the pianist, he'll sing his music over and over until it becomes a part of him. Then comes the day when he meets the director, the person whose job it is to bring this huge project to life. For The Phantom of the Opera, that man was Hal Prince.
And then you take his true history, which is an exceedingly personable, one half of his face exceedingly personable.
Rebecca Kane was to play the female lead, Christine. Rebecca and I had worked together before in Les Miserables in London.
And his mother instantly is so fearful of the deformity in his face that she claps a mask on him at the moment he can walk and makes him hide behind that mask for the whole of his life.
With a production as large and as detailed as The Phantom, one person could not possibly do it all. So Hal Prince has delegated his responsibilities to a team of directors, the music director, the choreographer, the stage manager, and most of all, to his longtime assistant, Ruth Mitchell.
I'm supposed to be close? Okay.
Leave you
Okay.
cold and feeling light, and then...
Ruth had worked on the productions in London, New York, and Tokyo. She knew Phantom inside out. Ruth and music director David Caddick guided Rebecca and myself through the early rehearsals as we worked out our movements on stage and learned the emotional nuances of the relationship between the Phantom and Christine.
And listen to the music of
It's an incredibly difficult character to play because you're on stage all night. You're looking upset and frightened 99% of the time. So there's not a lot of light and dark to play. So she can become very one-sided. The keynote of the performance is vulnerability. So you can't get out there and play it like this is your big Broadway starring chance.
Second obligato, the music, you come down, take her, sing for me.
This one, she does there. Then we go up a key, and the next one repeats twice, which is when... As the piece evolves, it shapes and sounds change depending on the style and weight of the singers. But it's going to sound sensational here. Now, these are the high C's now. This is the first one.
Come down on the second.
And he says, sing!
Back up.
My angels, sing for me!
While Rebecca and I were rehearsing in New York, back in Toronto, the craft shops had begun their work on the costumes, the sets, and the props. But what exactly do we mean by these terms? Imagine you were in your room at home. Take everything out of it. So you have bare walls, a bare floor, and bare windows. Now the clothes you're wearing as you stand in that empty room would be your costume. The room itself would be the set. And when you put all your stuff back in, all your records, the curtains, the bed, even your posters, these things are called props. Many of the props for Phantom came from a shop called Rabbit's Choice, named after a very special rabbit who belongs to props manager Fina MacDonald.
In a play like Phantom of the Opera, obviously we're not just dealing with beds and chairs and tables. We get to do more fantastical stuff, more interesting stuff. We get to make whips and elephants and music boxes with monkeys on them. He's the Phantom's companion. He lives in the Phantom's lair, and he plays a tune that we associate with the Phantom. And we molded his face out of plasticine, then made a plaster cast, and then poured rubber latex into the plaster cast and built up his face. He's sheepskin. All of his fur is sheepskin, with the exception of the little stand of hair at the top of his head and his side whiskers. Those are human hair. All of the trim on his jacket is antique trim, and it came from England with the costume designer. One of the really neat things about props that I enjoy is you get to take very ordinary stuff and transform it into very extraordinary stuff.
It's a bust of Schubert that goes on the piano which the Phantom plays. I painted it with a bronzy gold color, and I'm going over it with a dark brown wash to give it a bit of age, to make it look like it's a bronze cast, basically.
Certainly everything that we've built has been incredibly detailed and decorated and very precise and elaborate, which is another challenge and has been a lot of fun to do.
So we want to disguise it in that furl?
Well, it'd be great if we could. I acted professionally for, I guess, almost 10 years. Worked as a stage manager, worked in wardrobe for a while, and then fell into props. But I think the thing to do is to find a theater company and ask if you can volunteer your services. And if after a week or a month or a year of doing boring, mindless, repetitive junk, you're still interested, you've got a good chance of working in the business.